Hey everyone, this is John Catalyst Gray for EventHubs, and these are my hands-on Street Fighter 6 impressions. If everyone watching can cycle crush a like button, it helps the channel out tremendously. Getting right into it, the game feels very much like Street Fighter 5.5. A number of people basically noticed this as well, picking up the game, picking up Ryu and Luke. They really felt very heavily like their counterparts from the previous game. That's not to say that Street Fighter 6 doesn't offer some new and innovative things there, but just that there's a lot of callbacks here from the past, especially from the Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter 5 series, that is definitely going to resonate here with fans of this game. The Street Fighter franchise is famous, or infamous, for the core mechanics that each game has offered since the Street Fighter 2 series ran its course. Parries in Street Fighter 3, focused attacks, and the resulting moves in Street Fighter 4, and the V system in Street Fighter 5 have all come to define their respective games that they came from, and I think Street Fighter 6 will have a similar case here with the drive system. Right now, the drive impact, focused attack maneuver in Street Fighter 6 feels like a dominating force, but speaking with PG Punk and Justin Wong about the game at EVO 2022, it seemed actually like the drive rush mechanic was the favored way to spin meter in their eyes. Granted, it's still very early and it's possible a number of these attacks will be tweaked in the future, or currently already have been, as builds can change quite a bit often behind the scenes with games that are in development. The drive impact's ability to stun the opponent when they're cornered and burned out, plus absorb 2 attacks and deal a considerable amount of damage all for 1 bar felt extremely powerful, and early on this was a very popular tactic that I saw used repeatedly. While you can be thrown out of this attack and it can be avoided by jumping or being out of range, you really felt it if you blew through your drive gauge and the opponent closed ground on you in the corner. Drive rush felt particularly impactful when used in neutral, as you could whiff punish with the normal and then cancel into your drive rush and then continue the combo for really solid damage, and likely some Okazemi setups that we don't know about just yet. This does come at a great cost, however, at 3 bars, and could quickly lead you into burning out if you use it too often. Unfortunately, without knowing the frame data and having a really good understanding of the moves, the drive parry system currently feels very underwhelming, and it might be that this mechanic is locked behind a skill wall few people have hit yet, as hands-on time with Street Fighter 6 by most people in the community has been very limited. Speaking more about how the game feels like its predecessor, Ryu and Luke feel a lot like their Street Fighter 5 counterparts, where you could pick up and do their combos, spacing, and things of that nature without a big departure in execution or approach. Chun-Li and Jamie, however, felt very new and fresh. One thing I strongly feel, those names that you see atop the Capcom Pro Tour leaderboards, get used to seeing them more often, because people who are strong in Street Fighter 5 are very likely going to carry over a good portion of their skills into Street Fighter 6. However, playing Street Fighter 6 exactly like you play Street Fighter 5 will definitely land you in trouble, as there's going to be a new meta and new ways to play and enjoy this game that people are not anticipating just yet. This is, in many respects, a new experience that you have to adjust to, but the callbacks to prior games are definitely there as well. I had heard quite a bit about how strong fireballs were in this game compared to previous editions of Street Fighter, and unfortunately they didn't feel that strong to me. I'm a really heavy fireball based player. I play Rose in Street Fighter 5. Fireballs are something I've been tossing plasma here since Street Fighter 2, and unfortunately the fireball game in this does not feel as good as it did in Street Fighter 2 or Street Fighter 4, but that is a very high bar to hit. Ryu's fireball recovers quickly and they travel at a good speed, but they never felt like the game changers they have been in previous games. Perhaps I'm missing some of the core setups and things that are available, but as it is right now, fireballs felt slightly better than they are in Street Fighter 5, depending on the character you happen to use. Invincible reversals also felt different, and this could be attributed to the input delay or something else, like me forgetting that you can't do EX moves in Burnout, at least a few times, but the window to do invincible reversals seemed less friendly. The jury's still out on this one, but that was a big change that Capcom made in Street Fighter 4 to make, invincible reversals something that you could basically do whenever you wanted to. There was a lot of leniency, you could, a good frame buffer and other stuff on it, a lot of ways to get out the invincible reversal, and it does not feel the same in Street Fighter 6. Also, nearly everyone I played said the game felt heavy and a bit sluggish, something like a NetherRealm Studios title. Not that that's a bad thing, it feels different than what fans may have expected from a Street Fighter game. But this once again could be because of the input delay with the public build, which isn't uncommon with pre-release versions of games. This stuff is often tweaked in development, and it's one of the main things developers look for in the modern era of fighting games, so I'm really not concerned that Capcom isn't going to fix this given some time. Jumps also felt a bit floaty right now, and that could be due to the previously mentioned things. But this is another aspect of the game that's often tweaked in development, and once again, I have no worries that Capcom will get this dialed into where it should be. This was one of the main complaints that Street Fighter 4 players had with the game initially when they played it before it was released. That jumps felt a little bit too floaty, and they just didn't have that Street Fighter feel to them that you would expect. But of course that changed when the game actually came out. Fans of Street Fighter V are often used to throwing caution to the wind and draining every resource they have in an effort to KO the opponent as quickly as possible. This leads to a snowball effect in the game, where a few wrong guesses can end up costing you everything and making things feel very one-sided and almost like a one-player game, which can be not very fun when you're on the receiving end of those sets of attacks. However, in Street Fighter 6, there's a real tangible problem with trying to use this approach, and it's the burnout state. There were numerous times I just tried to unleash everything I had, every resource, just let me throw it right at the opponent, and then I'd end up in a really bad spot and it didn't work out because I would burn myself out. You need to hold on to your resources in this game to not make yourself susceptible to a number of disadvantaged situations that will likely cost you the round. But it can be so tempting just to fire away when you start rounds with a full 6 blocks of drive gauge. Oftentimes, the ways you play at the start, middle, and ends of rounds should be adjusted based on the resources you have, both on offense and defense. For example, looking for whiff punishes into drive rush at the start of rounds is a really smart idea to build up a life lead, but trying to pull it off in the middle or the end of a round and failing may leave you in a burnout state and cost you everything. Here are a few tips to get you started here in Street Fighter 6 if you plan on playing the game here in the near future. One of the dominant strategies to look out for, and you're going to see quite a bit from most players early on, is a considerable amount of drive impacts or focus attacks. This is actually a great way to get familiar with the new systems in the game and land some really powerful combos and setups. Drive impacts are a commitment-based option, and you can't dash out of them like you could with the focus attack in Street Fighter 4. Also, it's fairly easy to see this coming if you telegraph it and for the opponent to trigger their own drive impact on reaction. In all cases I saw, there could be some exceptions, but in every case I saw, the second person to do a drive impact in neutral is going to win out every time. So it's not something you can just spam away with and then hope for good results in the end. Also, while you can absorb 2 hits with the drive impact while you're doing it, you're much more likely to die if your health is low than what you would have happen in Street Fighter 4 when you absorb damage. In that game, you could absorb an obscene amount of damage even if your health was low, and you still would not die. That does not happen in Street Fighter 6. Throwing the startup of drive impacts are just avoiding it entirely, and with punishing all work as well. So there are plenty of counters, but learning the spacing and timing to this mechanic is going to be crucial for people starting out with the game, because you're going to see it a lot. Getting into more character impressions, Ryu felt closest to a Street Fighter V version, but with some Street Fighter 4 aspects thrown in as well. As previously mentioned, his fireball traps feel extremely good because the recovery of his Hadouken fireball is quite speedy. Also, his crouching medium kick, which is his #1 poke and has been since the Street Fighter 2 era, has a ton of range. I could not believe how much range they gave it, and it seemed to combo all the way when it was cancelled into stuff like his fireball or his Judan kick. You should be able to get right in with Ryu and do the normal fireball uppercut stuff you've been doing literally since the Street Fighter 2 era and have it work out decently for you. You're definitely going to have better results if you implement the drive gauge mechanics into the game. All that stuff is still very important, but the core part of Ryu, what has made him a solid character for all these years, it exists in Street Fighter 6 and it's quite effective. Luke also felt a lot like his Street Fighter 5 counterpart, which means powerful and plenty of options. Capcom seems very intent on making Luke good, probably because he'll be the co-protagonist for the game according to what we've been hearing. There was a moment where Luke did his fireball super on me, which I blocked, but he recovered before I had time to do a jump and punish, which really seems ridiculous for a super that is blocked on that kind of situation. Chun-Li on the other hand feels almost like a brand new character. Her EX spinning bird kick doesn't work well at all as an invincible reversal, and some of her normals have been heavily reworked. For example, her crouching medium punch is now a standard poke instead of a slide attack, and her up kicks are performed by pressing down kick, ironically. The developers said that Chun-Li is a speedy and technical character, and you really feel it by playing her. Quick movements and a strong throw, but also very difficult to string together attacks and such without knowing the routes and having the muscle memory just that comes from playing a character for so long. She has a number of moves that cancel into one another, and it was really hard to play her without having some time in training mode to practice her new combos and setups. Chun-Li is such a departure from the last two versions that we saw in Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter 5, I hope fans of the character don't mind that much. When I get the game, I'm probably going to main her, however, because I often play Chun-Li if Rose isn't available, but some of the changes they've made to the character are definitely a departure from what people have previously expected. The fourth and final character is the one unfortunately I got the least amount of time with, and that's Jamie. And he was also the character I saw that was played the least during the weekend. He has some Rekka-kin type attacks like Fei Long that are interesting, and it definitely feels, when you're playing him, even just moving around the screen, like he controls like a drunken combatant. But it was hard to get much going with him in this early stage. I wish I was able to explore more with him, but that will definitely come with some time. He's interesting, but he's so technical and he has so many different moves that it's hard to get a great grasp of the character just yet. Street Fighter 6 looks better in person than it does on stream, and even in this video, but it didn't seem to be running at a true 4K resolution just yet. It seemed more like 1080p upscaled to 4K, which is still nice, but not a true 4K experience. And that was a bit disappointing for me, because I wanted to see the game running at that resolution, which will likely require Capcom to run it on PC, as the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X are often running a checkerboard 4K resolution in other games. They actually struggle to run a true 4K resolution, and even all but the highest of high-end PCs right now actually struggle with that as well. I asked the Capcom team what the game was running at, but no one seemed to know offhand, so 1080p upscaled to 4K is how it looked to me. Despite the game feeling a bit sluggish, which could simply be just because it's nowhere close to the final build of the game, it truly does feel like a Street Fighter entry. Nailing this overall look and feel is extremely important to fans of the franchise, as when you're playing a numbered sequel, there's a certain amount of expectations that come with that. Based on past history, I have no worry that the developers will nail this with time. Gameplay wise, I believe that the base game is going to be really fun and enjoyable for fans of Street Fighter. However, if you're seeking something brand new and innovative, it's probably best to look at another fighting game on the market. This is far more of a callback to previous games in the series than a completely fresh and innovative take on the franchise. But again, that's how a numbered sequel should be set up, adding new things but honoring the past games as well. I really enjoyed my time with the game at EVO 2022, and I would have played it all day and night if I was able to. Most people at the event appeared to feel the same because the lines to play the game were really long, where it took about an hour or so to make your way through to get hands-on time. But big shoutouts to the people at Capcom who got me through the line and were able to get me extra time with it. I really super appreciated it, and it really gave me a chance to give these impressions out for the masses out there. Right now, Street Fighter 6 is shaping up to be a really big blast from the past, but with new trappings and mechanics to get fans excited as well. Things seem promising so far, and I really enjoyed my time with the game, and I can't wait to play it again.